What do a speaking coach, a strategy consultant, and a professional resilience speaker have in common? Sounds like the start of a bad joke, right? But honestly, it's all about finding out what people really do in their jobs. The stories, the struggles, the coffee breaks. The real stuff you won't find in a job title.
Welcome to a space where we sit down with people from all kinds of careers, have a laugh, and dive into what makes their work meaningful. Whether you're looking to learn something new or just here for a good story, let us be your guide. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Charlie.
And let's get
Casually Pro!
Woo! Today, we sit with an exceptional gentleman who brings resilience and personal power to a whole new level. You're listening to this, and I ask you, what's the worst thing that could happen to you? If you're anything like me, losing eyesight might be one of the top. If this would happen, then this is what happened to Kijuan Amey. After badassing in the US Air Force as an in-flight refueling specialist, he lost his sight in a motorcycle accident. Now, Kijuan is a speaker and entrepreneur who helps businesses and schools unite resilience, leadership, and purpose. He is the author of Don't Focus on Why Me. He publishes a newsletter called No Sight, No Excuses. Here's another quote from him. I may have lost my sight, but I did not lose my vision. Talk about mindset. And today is here with us on Casually Pro. Kijuan, I'm so happy to be here with you today. Can you please start by telling us who you are, what you do, and how you got to do what you do?
Yes, absolutely. First off, thank you both Jeff and Charles for having me on your show. And I just want to know that, if you guys are some really good introduction people, I need to carry y'all with me on the road. So, but anyway, what I do and who I am, honestly, humble young man from Durham, North Carolina. And I am a resilience speaker, a professional resilience speaker, because I have also been certified. I have also been vetted by speaking competitions. I am also, receiving coaching and mentoring daily, and the thing is, when you come into a career such as this, because I did not choose this career. Honestly, this career chose me because as y'all heard in the intro, I was an in-flight refueling specialist in the Air Force. And what that means is I was refueling airplanes in midair, literally. So I was honestly going to complete my 4-year college degree and commission to become an officer in the U.S. Air Force and fly that airplane. But there was a different route that God wanted me to take because He allowed this accident to happen to me, which was a motorcycle accident. And that was on May 5th, 2017. And here we are, 8 years later. But I am doing great things with my professional resilience speaking as well as coaching. I'm also an ambassador and a mentor for a program called the Air Force Wounded Warriors Program. And I help and assist those wounded Air Force members who might either still be in the Air Force or be transitioning out. And I help them with that whole process, but also give them someone to talk to. A listening ear is really what I like to say, because when you listen to someone, you can really find out what they're about and better serve them. So I use these techniques also in my own business by listening to others and better serving them. So when I speak, it's because I know who I'm speaking to. So yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on.
First of all, what an incredible story. From start to now here. Um, thank you for your service. I know a lot of vets hate hearing that, but uh it's so important, I think, that people understand that there is a difference between uh having a really really strong plan and carrying it out to the best of your ability versus the reality that things happen, right? No matter how good your plan is, no matter how well prepared you are, there's a really good chance that all of that goes out the window. The second reality sets it, right?
Yeah.
Um, but something that really caught my eye in terms of understanding kind of the basis of you, Kiwan, is first of all, talk about really awesome quotes. You say you lost your vision, your sight, but you didn't lose your vision. First of all, what an incredible quote. But I want to know a little bit about that vision because it sounds to me like you transitioned from, someone who had a plan to someone who, was figuring out as you go, but you had this sense of, I'm going to maintain something really core to myself, regardless of if I have my sight or not. Can you talk to us a little bit about kind of what that core belief is and how you, transitioned from your original plan to where you are now?
Yeah, yeah, that quote actually is pretty much wrapped up in what my core is. Losing my eyesight was a physical thing, but the mindset part of it, as Jeff said before, is the vision. We all have heard, or majority of us have heard of a vision board. Vision boards are usually something you're looking forward to, goals you're setting, and your mindset around something that you have to try to accomplish. And so my vision is to always continue helping others because that was the whole purpose. Especially when I joined the military, I was doing this for a service, not for me. You don't usually join the military for yourself, because as soon as you sign your name on that dotted line, you no longer own yourself at that point. That's what a lot of people don't realize. And so it's more so the service and the servitude that I had while I was in the service and I listen, I truly, with you saying thank you, I appreciate it because I did enjoy my time in the service in the military. So I don't take that for granted at all. And I'm always grateful for having served because I have a huge backing um, with family members that have been in the military, mostly Navy, but the U.S. Navy recruiter talked me out of joining the Navy. So I went to the Air Force recruiter, and they welcomed me in. So that's kind of how my story was started with the military. But my family has literally touched every single branch of the U.S. military. And, we currently have two still serving. We have one in the Coast Guard and one and my youngest brother who's in the Air Force right now. And so it's one of those things where servitude is a part of my family, not just me. You know what I mean? And so I've grown up that way and I'm holding on to it. And it's just one of those marquee things that you just have to say, am I doing this for me to build my pride, to build my ego, or am I doing this to help someone else? And I understood that the purpose that I have is to help somebody else, not myself.
Wow, this is beautiful. So you already had those values before the accident, and you found a different way to express those values.
Yep.
That was compatible with your new condition. But
Yeah.
saying it like this, Kiwan, it seems easy. But I imagine that the reality wasn't as smooth as just waking up after the accident, realizing that the sight was gone, and just telling yourself, all right, let's rock on. I imagine the story was a little bit different than
Yeah,
this.
no.
Can you tell us a little bit about this process of recovery, or maybe the downs that you could have had at the moment, because there might be people who are listening who are currently in the lows, and how did you get
Yeah.
through?
I absolutely had some downs for sure. Um, so again, I told you my accident was May 5th, 2017. Well, I didn't wake up in the hospital until June 6th of 2017. So I have no idea I've even been in this accident. Um, One, because I got knocked out, and two, because I was in a medically induced coma. And so with the traumatic brain injury that I suffered, which is very severe, um, I remember none of the actual accident. I know what I was doing before that day, and I can tell you what I did after that day, but I don't know anything in between. And it so I'm 100% blind right now. I woke up this way. It was not gradual. Like some people gradually lose their eyesight due to maybe some kind of deteriorating eye condition or something like that. Maybe it's hereditary, maybe it's something that cataracts, whatever. But I woke up with zero eyesight. And so when that happened, it was it was like waking up in the night, like a really bad nightmare. And you're just like, "Huh, I thought I opened my eyes. But I did, but they were open, and I'm like, I can't see a thing. And I could hear people talking. I just I couldn't see anybody. And so going through that process of just first off trying to process what happened. And after my mom finally told me what had happened, I would I really didn't want to talk anymore that day or communicate that day. After I found out, I mean, honestly, I'm sure you guys can figure out why, uh, because you're just trying to process everything. And it took me a little while, uh, and I questioned God. I really, really questioned God about it because I am a faith believer, and so I would always ask Him, why me? Why did you allow this to happen to me? And that's where my book title comes from. Don't focus on why me. And that's why I am able to do so much nowadays. But getting back to the question you asked, those dark days, I had some in the hospital, yes, but they it wasn't as many because I would always have somebody coming to visit me, and that's really helpful, for someone who's down on their luck or has had something really traumatic happen to them, such as I did. To have people come and visit you and not always the same person. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but when you got different people coming, you get to interact differently. And so at the hospital, it wasn't that bad. Now, when I got home, this is where a lot of the really bad thoughts started to kick in. And when I say really bad, I mean very depressed, literally suicidal thoughts. And so I'm having a hard time because I don't know what's left of me. And I don't mean my body. I mean of my future because I had one. Like I told you guys, I was going to school full time. I was trying to become a pilot and fly airplanes. That was my future. And I just had to figure out what is it now at that point in time back in 2017. And so with those moments, rapidly racing through my mind, it was really truly bringing me down. I might be blind right now and can't see anything, but those were some dark days. And I truly mean that. And it was um it was a time where I needed not just God to step in, but I needed like a physical presence because I really felt like I didn't have one. My girlfriend at the time, she ghosted me, you know, friends, they of course had to go back to their own lives. They can't always be at my bedside, you know. And so I'm just I was to a point where I was like, I'm about to break. And I made a phone call, which was to my uncle. He is a pastor, and you know, honestly, I was expecting him to kind of give me the Bible answer for it. He didn't. God must have heard my prayer because I said, I don't really, God, I know you there, but I need something physical. And he heard my prayer and he must have told me to call my uncle. And so I called him and it was like I think it was like 7 or 8 p.m. at night when I called him. And I'm thinking, we're just gonna chat on the phone. Well, he says, "Hold on, Key, I'm on my way over." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" You gonna leave your comfortable home with your beautiful wife and you're gonna come see me? And that's what I was thinking. And he did. And not only did he come see me, we went for a ride. He took me out. And that actually helped too because I hadn't been outside. Like at that time for sure. I didn't get out that much, because of the accident. And so with him actually taking me out and we got to, park and just sit and talk. Somebody listened to me. And not only listened, they gave me feedback that I was just like, wow, because the first things out of his mouth was, and hear me clearly, this is verbatim. The first thing out of his mouth was, well, Key, I'm surprised it took you this long. Why did he say that? Because he's thinking I would have been breaking down. I would have been having these depressive moments, been having these suicidal thoughts. But it took me months after my accident to have that actually. And he was surprised it took that long. He thought it would have came way sooner. So I was doing better than I thought. I just needed the reassurance, to say, hey, you can do this. Keep pressing on. And if you ever need me, continue to reach out to me and anybody else for that matter.
That is, it's a really beautiful kind of example of what resilience is. And I think, being someone in that space talking about it every day, maybe it might not be uh something that you think about a ton, but when I think about the most mentally strong people I know, right? These people are the kinds that, run through broken glass and don't, break a sweat and do these incredible physical things. Um, Funnily enough, a lot of them are also veterans. A lot of my friends are veterans as well. But I think the thing that people often forget is that being resilient, being strong, doesn't mean that you are bulletproof, right? It doesn't mean that you are entirely without fault. And very rarely do I think people in those positions, especially the positions where you have to be that type of mental resilience, um, very rarely do they seem to reach out to find that kind of uh I, I I almost want to say like comfort, but it's more like camaraderie, more like someone to tell you that yes, you are going through something really, really horrible, but you're doing well, right?
Mhm.
You're doing okay. Or if you're not doing okay, how can we help, right?
You're
And I
right.
think that's why this is so impressive. It's not because I think you just like gritted your teeth and got through it all the way, but you have a real story about how you went through this horrible ordeal and found the people in your life that you needed when you needed them in a way that built you up stronger than you ever were before. Kind of going back to something that you talk about, your work with other veterans, your work with the Wounded Warriors program.
Mhm.
Uh I'm really curious to hear, like, what is your experience with that? Do you feel like, veterans that you work with are getting the help that they need? Do you feel like it's one of those things that maybe there is a gap between people's understanding of how to take care of themselves, how to become resilient in the first place versus, you know, thinking or having this illusion that you have to be bulletproof all the time. You have to be perfect, squared away with everything kind of locked up in your mental kind of locker and fortitude. Um, how do you approach someone who feels like they failed
Mm.
because they couldn't be strong all the time?
Right, right. Now, that's a great question, by the way, first and foremost. I will have to give you two answers because I know it from being in the military and then the Air Force Wounded Warriors program side of it. So I'm going to give you those two stances. The being in the military program stance is where if we even, it's almost like if you even showed just an ounce of weakness, people looked at you funny. It's almost like they don't want you to seek help. Um, they feel like if you go to mental therapy, mental health is what we call it, you are now like the castaway. And you're outcast to them because it's like, wait, you're not fit to fight. You're not, and personally, I've always been against that because when I was, coming up before I went into the military, I was taught to seek help. But when I go to this military branch, I'm told to not seek help. Like I'm so lost. Where's the disconnect here? And when you create an environment like that, there are a bunch of people with mental health problems because nobody's going to get help. And so that's the Air Force while I'm still inside of it. Now, the Air Force, when I got out the Wounded Warriors program, I was, let's see, what's a good word? Shocked, maybe? Because they're hugging and they're telling you it's okay, and they're telling you it's okay not to be okay, and they're making you feel loved, and they're telling you if you don't feel okay, please tell somebody. If you need some help, we can send you back home. Whatever. They're trying to do everything for you. And I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. I'm gonna overload. It was like my mainframe was about to overload. And so the first time somebody came up and hugged me, I was like, whoa, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on here? 'Cause I'm still in the Air Force mindset. All I heard was Air Force. I didn't hear about the Wounded Warriors program part, or it didn't register in my mind that, hey, you're no longer in. You can hug people now. You can show public displays of affection because that was the things you couldn't show in the military. If you have a uniform on or you're at some military event, you can't do that. So that was where my mind was. I'm like, oh, can't do that. And if I do, it's gotta be like that. Like you blinked and you missed it. And so when I think back to those different sides of it, I say the Air Force Wounded Warriors program, yes, they're there to try and help you every step of the way as much as they can. Because that's what that program was created for. Now, I will say every branch has that program or type of program, but I will add The Air Force is usually the better one. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. We usually do things right in the Air Force. But I don't want to say that it's not helpful for the other programs. You should always, always, always seek those programs. And that the other thing of it is, how do you find out about the programs? Because I didn't know anything about it. My whole 10 years in the service, I knew nothing about the Air Force Wounded Warriors program. And they had been there the whole time I had been in service. I think, yeah, I think they came in 2011 or 2000, somewhere around 2011. And that was when I went into the military. So they were around the entire time I was in the military. And I knew nothing, zero about them. And so I feel like these are usually the problems. Like it's usually like the best kept secrets. If you've ever heard that phrase, that's what the Air Force Wounded Warriors program is. All of those programs are. They're the best kept secrets. We don't need those to be secrets. Those need to be so known and widespread. That's why most people usually see me wearing my shirts. I always wear those shirts when I go out somewhere, like to the gym, usually, because I want people to know about that program because it's there for us, And so, yeah, that's my take on it.
Wow. Kijuan, you also help businesses and individuals. I wonder what kind of work you do with businesses. Let's say if I'm the CEO of a company, how do I know that I should call you and what type of work would you propose?
Yeah, it of course depends on what you're looking for. Again, that goes back to what I was saying earlier. I listen in order to know how to better serve. So say for example, a CEO is looking for one-on-one. If he's looking for one-on-one, then I can do, potential coaching, resilience coaching and stuff like that. Because I mean, first off, I went through so much resilience training while I was in the military. I might as well have taught it myself. But I am also living a resilient life. Every day I wake up is resilient because of what happened to me, because of what I have to go through on a daily basis. Like all of this, all the things I do in general is a life of resilience. And so I could prepare some type of training based off of even even if they want me to base it around their business, the types of things they do for work, because a banker is not going to be as resilient. A CEO of a bank company might not be the same type of resilient and looking for that same type as someone who's a construction worker and owns a construction company. You get what I'm saying? There's two different types of people that are running these businesses. And so it would be tailored to the type of business. Now, if we're talking like a group or a conference, for example, or even a speaking engagement, it will be like, what is your conference based on this year? Are you guys themed a certain way? Or are you guys coming off a really hard year, a really hard quarter? I can teach you on the resilience of that. What's the comeback? What is your overall goal for coming back? We have to fight back, and these are different speeches I could deliver to get, not, I won't say rah rah type speeches, but I will say it will get your company back pumped up and ready for work. So those are just a couple of examples I could give.
That's such an interesting kind of dichotomy, in my opinion, right? Because you work both on like the deeply dark and personal side of resilience, which is, these people who have had horrible, truly horrible things happen to them, and
Yeah.
now they have to figure out how to bring stuff back to day one, really.
Hmm.
But then you also work on the corporate side where it's like, okay, sometimes the worst thing that they've had to go through is like a layoff or like a really bad quarter or a couple of quarters coming together, um, which it doesn't feel that uh, I guess dark and gloomy and depressing as something like the first one, but there are, like you said, different levels or different kinds of resilience that go into
Hmm.
this. Um, in your kind of like professional opinion and in your like understanding of this landscape of resilience, where do you think people often kind of like fall apart? Uh, both in terms of like the personal and professional, right? Because like I worked just to give you an example, I worked as an accountant for a handful of years, and in the worst times, I would wake up and it would be dark, right? It would be like before the sun would even rise, go to work for too many hours, until like 2 or 3 in the morning, right? I would leave the
Hmm.
office, it would still be dark, and I would not see the sun for 3 to 4 months.
Hmm.
And for me, that was killing me. That
Yeah.
was just the most. I wouldn't. Physically, of course, there was a huge toll, but like mentally, not
Yeah.
being able to see my friends, my family, not being able
Hmm.
to do anything other than work, not being able to see the sun for four
Yeah.
months.
Hmm.
That was grueling. And I think at one point I realized like, okay, I had to do something else. And so I went off and built my career outside of that. But I think there are different levels at which people feel that they have to either change or stop or do something different. But that feeling of needing to change is
Hmm.
also coinciding with a feeling of failure, right? Because maybe I can't keep it up, right? Like if I thought to myself at that point, like I just can't do it anymore, I failed, right?
Right.
But that isn't always the case. But when you find that most people feel like they fail, and how do you transition them into a place of, okay, it's not failure, it's a chance for me to be more resilient, to develop something inside of myself that makes me better. Where do you
Hmm.
find that point of failure and how do you fix it?
Well, I just heard something very interesting recently, and I hope it can work for anybody who's listening. Um, it's not always about failure. You might just be forming. You might be forming into something new, something different, something better. And so for me to be, I'll use the example when I was in the Air Force. When I was just becoming a new airman, a a brand new in-flight refueling specialist, I had some so-called failures, but it was forming me into later down the road in like I think 3, maybe 4 years, I became an instructor. Like those failures in the beginning is what made me to be a great instructor to where I could teach those mistakes I made, those stumbles I made, those obstacles I had to jump over. And so I love to tell people if you can't teach from experience, you can't teach me anything. Why would I come to somebody who's never been through anything that I'm trying to get, answers for, shall I say? Why would I go to why would I go to somebody who's never been an accountant for accounting advice when I know an accountant? That doesn't make sense. Somewhere along the way, you're gonna mess up. And that might come back to bite you. And I'll consider that a failure. But another thing that I was thinking about when you were talking about your accountant days, see, I call those seasons. Like there's an accountant season. I'm going to be locked in for the next 3 to 4 months. Say, for example, you had wife, kids, and everything. Wife, children, uh, family, friends. Y'all know what time this is. I might even make a public post on social media. Guys, I'm going to be locked in for the next 3 to 4 months. So if you don't hear from me, if I'm not responding a lot, that's why. It's due to work. After I come out of this season of work, guess what? I have free time. I could see the light. I might even take 2 to 3 weeks off and go on a vacation because my head has been down so long. I need to get out of there. And so that's how you can like restructure it. You could see, use a, what I like to say is people's perspectives are usually what drives them down. So if you always like, well, I can't, here we go with the same stuff again. I'm back to the same. If it's January where it starts and April where it ends, you need to know this is going to happen every year. Not, oh, here we go again. January's coming around. I gotta do this again. No, be like, okay, it's hunting season. Let's get it. It's my accountant season. I'm finna destroy it. Once I come out of this thing, ooh, I'm gonna count down. I'm gonna set a whole countdown for this thing. Because on say for example, April 15th, when everything is done, I'm done. Don't look for me. Don't look for me until the middle of May or something. So that's what we have to do. We have to give ourselves what I call that grace period. If we are in moments like that, where we have to hunker down, during a certain time of the year or whatever.
Oh yeah, it's like the attitude that you have
Hmm.
towards the event. And it might be also what made you go through this accident. Because there's usually two ways to take things. And one is you go, but because you have to, you're forced to, and you're just
Hmm.
in reaction, or you just let's go through,
Hmm.
let's do that. I like the image of a roller coaster. You always have those people who they take the roller coaster, but they take the bar, and you see they suffer so much. And then there are the others. They just put their hands in the air and they like woohoo.
Yeah.
I like
Yep.
this. Really love. I think what
Exactly. That's actually a really good example.
okay, when there might be someone who's listening right now and who's in a very rough situation, something really bad, or who will have something bad, unfortunately, that will happen in their life. Is there one tip that could help them? If you could give them one tip, what would it be?
I'll give them what I usually, go off of. And this is like for anybody, whatever situation you're dealing with. It could be financial, it could be you just got laid off. It could be something as traumatic as what happened to me. You had a really bad accident or just lost a loved one. But the biggest thing you can do is think about the other side of this thing. And so what you have to say to yourself is my current situation. So my situation right now does not define who I am. I define who I am. And that's how you have to look at things. You can't always look at the situation as being what defines you because that's just a situation. Those things don't always last. They'll come to an end. You have to figure out what you are. And when you know who you are and what you're doing, nothing can stop that.
You know, we talk a lot about the different kinds of incredible people that we get to know throughout this podcast, Jeff and I. Um, and the reason that we're so passionate about this podcast is because we get to meet incredible people like you, but we also, like yourself, really want to be able to give back to our listeners, right? And the way that we do that is by asking you a very specific question. And it's all around skills, right? you yourself, you didn't start as a resilience coach. You had a plan, something horrible happened. You woke up and you figured out how to build yourself back up. And much like that, there are people out there, maybe coming out of school, maybe transitioning from career to career, going through some tremendous changes in their life. Or maybe they're preparing to. Uh, and with that being said, we want to make sure that we arm them with the best advice and the best information that they have, right? So, with all that being said, what is one skill that someone out there can start working on, can start developing, can build inside of themselves, uh, kind of starting from zero? What's one skill that they can start building that you built yourself, that you developed yourself, um, to get you to where you are today?
I would definitely have to say it's mindset. We,
Mm.
what a lot of people don't realize is you do nothing without your mind. So I'll give you somewhat of a grueling type of scenario or visualization, shall I say. Um, when the doctor comes in and announces somebody is brain dead, that's it. They can't do anything else for you. Why? Your body might be in perfectly fine condition, but if your mind is gone, so are you. So until you have a good mindset, perspective, and great outlook on life, if you can't change that, if you can't try to be positive every single day and go about living a positive life, it's not going to matter. So until you start from up here in your mind, it won't matter.
Wow. Kiwan, thank you so much for having shared your story, your wisdom. Honestly, I'm so happy to be able to have the chance to talk with someone like you who shows the power of mindset. I'm a deep believer of the importance of mindset. But when I talk with you, then I understand that it's even more powerful than what I thought. And that even you face a situation that honestly I thought about a few times before, thinking, well, oh, if this happens, then I'm fucked. Sorry for the vocabulary. But now I'm a bit relieved. I think because through you, I feel that this fear is now a lot weaker. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
This discussion was very enlightening. And Kijuan, now I'd like to ask you a question that we ask all of our guests.
Okay.
I will hand you the magic microphone. The magic microphone is magic because it allows you to speak to everyone on the planet, everyone who lives today, but also everyone who's not even born yet. It is your chance to leave a universal and timeless message to everyone. Take as much time as you want to think, and here's the mic.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate the magic mic. And I won't even drag this one out. I'll make it pretty short, sweet, because I don't want you to forget it. When somebody tells you you can't, I don't care what the can is, you implement what it is. But when somebody tells you you can't, show them why you can. And I'll hand you back the magic mic.
I I say this all the time. The short ones are always the best. Kijuan, thank you so much for speaking with us. And what an inspiring and awesome story you have. But more importantly, what an incredible world you're helping build by showing people they don't have to be bulletproof. They can be resilient. They can be strong. They can find help and continue to build into something that is more incredible than what they had planned before. Kijuan, where can we find you? Where can people find you if they want to reach out and maybe get some of your services or reach out for any kind of resilience programming?
Absolutely. Again, you can search my name, Kijuan Amey, on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, or you can go to my website, which is ameymotivation.com. That's AMEY motivation.com. You can find my services on there as well as my social media handles. My book link is on there. And you can feel free to check out the pages on there because I do have some videos. And as Charles mentioned, of me playing my drums, but also speaking. And I would love for somebody to book me to come speak and be a part of their next event and be their keynote speaker. You can find all that information on my website. And that website address again is ameymotivation.com.
Phenomenal. Ladies and gentlemen, if you made it this far, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure to like, subscribe, send this to a friend who needs a little pick-me-up or needs to, figure out their next step. And make sure to join us every Wednesday for incredible people like Kijuan here, bringing you some great wisdom and a great chance to be both casual and rough. Thanks so much. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Yay, bye-bye.